Hey everyone, welcome back! I was actually working on a different video for Gara and stumbled across this development as a consequence. While I don't intend to use Gara this way in the upcoming projects, after some extra testing, I could not avoid this topic since it appeared to be a massive upgrade to existing Shatter Lash builds, even if fundamentally just a couple minor tweaks from what we are used to. It doesn't even use any new gear from the Angels update, so everyone should be able to run it. This is the upgraded Shattered Lash Nuke. There are some things I want to be clear about the setup. It is not a Splinter Storm Touch of Death build. It is not super easy to play. We do not have natural talent since I deem it a waste as it does not affect Shattered Lash cast time while it affects her other abilities. This is also a medium duration build, so you need to pay attention to it if you want that 90% damage reduction. This is still a shield gate build, so 90% only goes so far without any health mods. The build is also energy demanding, so you will have to cast Spectral Siphon often. This is a build strictly meant for Steel Pass survival, however it has absolutely insane firepower, even on a completely Rivenless setup as shown here. If you're still interested, let's get started, shall we? This is Shattered Lash, Gara's bread and butter of today's project. It is a pseudo-exalted ability, meaning it takes the mods of whatever equipped melee to determine its damage scaling. This is on top of the traditional strength, range, and efficiency mods. That is why melees for pseudo-exalteds are called stat sticks, because the ability has its own weapon stats and completely ignores the base stats of the melee you are using, even if it scales off melee mods. Certain unique melee perks or augments can apply, but that isn't relevant for today. Now that we know what is a stat stick, how do we pick one? Recently, Kuva and Tenet melee were finally adjusted so that the progenitor bonus is now included for pseudo-exalted scaling, making them the premier choice in Rivenless setups when you cannot take advantage of higher dispositions. The choices today are Tenet Agendis, Tenet Exec, and Kuva Shieldeg. I picked Agendis just because it is the highest percent progenitor I have. Do not pick Tenet Grigori or Livia, because their combo counters reset to 0 when casting a pseudo-exalted or exalted ability. As you saw in the preview, we have a grouping ability today. This makes it easier to build combo with these melee weapons. If you want ease of use and are not using a grouping helmet, then I would suggest any glaive that isn't Zor's, because Zor's has the same problem as Grigori and Livia resetting combo when casting a pseudo-exalted or exalted ability. If you've been listening along, you may be wondering how this is any different from old school Shattered Lash Nuke setups we've been using for years now. This is due to how Shattered Lash works. Unlike its popular cousin, Korra's Whipclaw, Shattered Lash has a crit and status distribution of 0% for both. It also has a 1x crit multiplier. This means crit chance mods are useless on melees because the pseudo-exalts of Gara has nothing to scale off of, but flat crit works. Yep, today is another Combat Discipline Arcane Avenger build. Combat Discipline damages you on kills, and this damage can trigger Arcane Avenger. With how easy it is to kill enemies with Shattered Lash, you bet we will have Arcane Avenger active at all times. Now why does this matter? Because of stat dilution. This is a traditional non-combo Gara stat stick. We have 4 elementals, double base damage, buzzkill for slash and corrupt charge. We picked slash today because we'll be primarily using the default hold ability for Shattered Lash. This makes it do an infinite body punch through arc swing, instead of, well, shooting a small glass dart when you tap Shattered Lash. You can also go into options if you want to swap this around so that the swing only needs a tap, but essentially we are going for the swinging variant of the ability. That one only does slash and has no puncture, which is why we're using Buzzkill instead of Augur Strike, which is traditionally used to blow up your Mass Vitrify wall quickly to stack buffs onto your Splinter Storm, since that version of Shattered Lash is faster to cast. The 4 elemental mods though scale off the base damage of Shattered Lash, and because elemental ordering matters, we only have 2 main mods to make corrosive. The rest of the elemental mods add very little because they're either lower percent to add more corrosive or a less desirable element than corrosive against armor, such as heat. It's the equivalent of adding Serration with Primary Merciless. Once you have your first contribution to a type of stat, adding more isn't worth as much because of diminishing returns. So how do we solve this? I replaced 2 of the elements with Organ Shatter and Gladiator Might. This boosts the crit multiplier of Shattered Lash from 1 to 2.5. And all of that 2.5 times is corrosive damage, whereas before we had 1 times damage scaling of corrosive, and then adding a little bit of blast, or less extra bonus corrosive and heat, which neither are really optimal against armor. So we basically increased our total damage by 2.5 times. But wait, Shattered Lash has 0% crit, and Arcane Avenger only boosts it to 45. Doesn't that make it unreliable? That's a good question. Say hello to the Adarza Kavad. This is a generic Adarza build I'm using. You do have to revive Adarzas manually when they down, unlike Panzers. But on the other hand, they have access to a mod called Cat's Eye. Every 20 seconds, they buff your crit by 60% for 10 seconds. Now we also have a mod called Tech Enhance that boosts Kavad buff durations by 30%. AKA, it turns Cat's Eye into a 13-second buff. Shattered Lash will be above 100% crit, and this still results in a massive DPS increase compared to traditional Shattered Lash builds, and allows this Gara to perform similar to the traditionally accepted God Riven setup that uses a plus damage, plus toxin, plus electric, harmless negative option. We still have radar and vacuum to find the densest enemy spawns, whereas Tech Assault allows your Kavad to dodge a lethal hit 60% of the time. Generic link mods because why not, and Medipet Kit to massively extend the bleed out timer of your Kavad to over a minute. The synth mods don't do much here since we're only using epitaph primers in melee, but they are staples on a generic build. So far I have showed you a non-combo Gara stat stack on my agendas. What if I want a combo variant? But also, why do we want a combo variant? This is another less known mechanic on pseudo exalts. They gain a final damage multiplier depending on how much combo you've built up. For every multiplier above 1x, pseudo exalts gain an extra 0.25 times final damage. Basically, being at 5x combo means you are 4x above the base level. 1/4  4x is 1x. So your pseudo exalt will do 1 times bonus damage, or 2 times the total damage. Now, a 12x combo build is 11x combo above base, or results in your pseudo exalted doing 3.7 times total damage. The 2x build I showed you earlier, it does 1.25 times total damage, so building for 12x combo means you're literally tripling your damage potential compared to a non-combo basic 2x build. There is a very simple swap for this. Just drop Corrupt Charge for Molten Impact. Unfortunately, there's nothing better, but if you do build for 12x, remember to also put Dexterity Arcanes on both your primary weapon stat stick, which can also bring Amalgam Serration for bonus sprint speed, but also your Epitaph Pistol with this Viral Radiation Primer build that includes 2 Augur mods. This will add 15 seconds combo duration to your agendas, making it much easier to manage 12x combo. I would also recommend taking Naramon for Power Spike so it never fully decays if you're on 12x setups. If you're on the non-combo 2x build, then take whatever focus school you want. But how exactly do we build combo super easy? Simple. This is the first and main highlight Gara build for today, Ensnare. Ensnare is great because it doesn't ragdoll enemies while pulling them into place. Why don't we want ragdoll enemies? Because not only are we using Ensnare to group enemies up to smack with agendas to build 12x combo easily, but we are also using it to drag enemies together to nuke with Shattered Lash. For some reason, Shattered Lash cannot hit ragdoll enemies, so Airburst, Larva, and Coil Horizon are all out of the picture. Shattered Lash on the swing also cannot hit knockdown enemies, so we really want enough DPS to one-shot them since failing to do so with the swing knocks them down. We do have sky-high range on the build, and Shattered Lash hits in a massive arc in front of us up to 22 meters, so it isn't really required, but it is nice to use Ensnare. Shattered Lash is also mostly planar and struggles to hit anything more than slightly above or below you, so Ensnare can be useful in pulling enemies off of ledges. We have 3 Augur mons total, including the 2 from Epitaph, for 120% energy to shield conversion today. This is the perfect amount with the Decay Dragon key on the build to cut our shields to 75. Casting Ensnare costs 62.5 energy in the setup and will restore exactly 75 shields to grant full shield gate again. Casting Splinter Storm will also do the same when you reset it. It would require 2 casts of Shattered Lash though, which is unaffected by natural talent, so I would not recommend using it to reliably reset your shield gate. Spectral Rage with his augment has a massive radius on the build and easily covers a 10-ish meter radius. Everything killed inside has a 50% chance to drop energy orbs, further incentivizing use of Ensnare for Shattered Lash group one-shots. This alone is enough to sustain the energy on the build despite not running Xeneric or Energize. Just make sure to actually cast this ability, else you will have an empty tank after a bit. It does linger for 28 seconds, so you can redrag enemies inside of it in later rotations with Ensnare easily. Our Splinter Storm, for 90% damage reduction today, also only lasts 28 seconds with 128 duration, so keep an eye out on it if you want it. 220 range grants us a massive 22 meter radius on our Shattered Lash arc and Ensnare's pull, giving great grouping potential and also the ability to kill without it. Rolling Guard is still on the build to dodge pesky status effects as well as help reset shield gates safely when casting abilities, since we don't have natural talent. Prime Sure-Footed is self-explanatory, and as I explained earlier, Combat Discipline will self-damage you when you killed with Lash, which will proc Arcane Avenger for 45% bonus flat crit on Lash. Arcane Fury also procs off crits, synergizing off the massive hitbox of Lash critting with Avenger to grant us another 180% melee base damage without needing to use a weapon that can crit. To offset this health drain, I would strongly recommend bringing Magus Elevate, which can also get you out of a pinch when you want to go Operator instead of resetting Shield Gate. Now alternatively, if you don't want to play the Ensnare grouping playstyle, I can suggest Breach Surge. This ability does not care about duration because the blind lasts an obscenely long time to start with. This means you can actually swap Streamline for Fleeting Expertise to reach 105 efficiency, since the lack of grouping reduces the amount of energy orbs you can get by using Spectral Siphon. I've instead subsumed over Gara's 2 on the setup since 68 duration cuts into Splinter Storm down to just 15 seconds, which is annoyingly short and expensive to cast. This build is much more aggressive in playstyle, with higher damage potential due to chaining Breach Surge particles with a 3.88 times damage multiplier and 39.6 meter blind radius. For the easiest playstyle, I would also recommend trying the 2x Agendis melee stat stick setup since building 12x can be a bit annoying without Ensnare. However, if you are still bold enough to try the 12x melee stat stick setup on Breach Surge and actually survive, your damage output will be nothing short of ridiculous. Everything else remains the same compared to the Ensnare build. And there you go, an updated Gara Prime Shattered Lash Nuke build that does not use the Touch of Death setup, and Rivenless. It is competitive with even the best Riven builds. Enjoy an essentially free, average final 2 times damage multiply compared to the old meta setups. I'd recommend using Ensnare or Breach Surge for this build, but if you want to go the absolute furthest, you could still go the tried and true Eclipse strat, though it will be very difficult to survive. I picked Ensnare and Breach Surge because they actually work on the Acolytes, and while not as strong as core as Whipclaw, you can easily crowd control them and then tap spam the quick Shattered Lash to kill them before they can recover. Cheers! If this is your first time watching, feel free to leave a like or, better yet, subscribe. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. 79.5% of you are not subscribed. I'm trying my best to get you new information out always, as soon as possible, like I'm done with covering the new Echoes of Zariman update. Stick around if you want to see interesting memes and builds on a nearly daily basis. You won't miss out on any of that, do you? That'll be it for this video, thank you all for watching, and see you all next time.